Tonight, workers left without wages. Fears are growing for hundreds of jobs at a huge joiners firm in Fife.
I've been here coming up for 50 years and been through it a couple of times, but I mean this was just out of the blue.
Also tonight, why does Scotland have the highest number of cases of Lyme disease in the UK?
It taints every single part of your life and every single aspect. It's very difficult to try and lead anything that even resembles a normal life.
The UK government is being urged to do more to get a better deal for Scottish farmers after Brexit. And the plummeting pound. Bad news if you're heading overseas on holiday, but visitors to Scotland are quids in. Good evening, I'm Sharon Donaldson and this is the STV News at 6, live from Aberdeen. The future of more than 200 workers at a joinery firm in Fife is in doubt tonight for the second time in a year. Havelock in Kirkcaldy has hit cash flow problems, leaving it unable to pay its staff. Efforts to strike a deal have stalled and the company could be on the verge of administration. Well, Gordon Cree is in Fife for us tonight and joins us now from outside the factory. Gordon, a very worrying time for the workers there.
Indeed it is. This time yesterday they were being told not to report for work as normal today, but to come in for a meeting at 12 o'clock. So they duly trooped in and then trooped out a few minutes later, having been told not very much and to come back again tomorrow at 10. What they do here is quite specialist. It's interiors for the likes of hotels, shops, schools. They're at the mercy of cash flow and getting payments in on time. That nearly brought them down last year, and it looks like it could do again. A matter of weeks ago, Havelock didn't look like a company with any concerns for its future. It proudly tweeted a video of apprentices building a new reception desk at its factory. It appears the problems here have mushroomed, and tonight 230 people haven't been paid and don't know if they have a job.
I've been here coming up for 50 years and been through it a couple of times, but I mean this was just out of the blue.
Havelock has been fitting out a hotel at the Aberdeen Exhibition and Conference Centre for the construction company Robertson. I'm told a substantial payment was due for that work in 2 weeks' time, but there had been discussions in an attempt to get it early. Those talks failed to reach a resolution by this morning.
We've got loads of work, but just if people didn't pay your bill, then you can't pay your men, and then that's it, you're out of business. So all the people in there right now have got all direct debits, all mortgages, all to be paid because Robertsons have not paid that.
That is money that was definitely owing and due to be paid in 2 weeks' time. And there's a frustration, I think, for me around, for the sake of 2 weeks, we could have at least had the staff paid. And that, for me, was the priority to try and achieve out of all of that.
Robertson declined our request for an interview, but in a statement said it cannot be held to ransom and strongly refutes the allegation that it is in any way responsible for Havelock's demise. Management at Havelock were not contactable by STV News despite repeated attempts.
As far as I can understand, Havelock have done their best to mitigate this situation. The problem, as far as we can see, is down to cash flow.
So, Gordon, workers sent home today, what happens next?
Well, they come back here tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. Their fear is they'll be told then that it's going into administration. The local MP is involved, the Scottish Government's involved, Scottish Enterprise is involved, Fife Council is involved. There's a lot of work for them to do because this company has been here for 150 years. It's an area that's been battered by other problems, BiFab down the road, lots of shop closures in Kirkcaldy High Street, big economic problems for them to deal with tonight. It seems that after that 150 years, time may well be running out.
Thanks for that, Gordon. A new report says Scotland has the highest number of Lyme disease cases in the UK. The tick-borne disease has caused misery for thousands. The number of cases continues to rise at an alarming rate every year in the UK and could be 8,000. Here's Colin White.
Morven May McCallum at home in the Black Isle. She's been living with Lyme disease since she was 14. Each day is ruled by a wide range of tablets, therapies and medication.
It just steals everything that makes you human. It completely destroys who you are, and the impact it has not just on you but on your friends and your family is completely immeasurable. You can't quantify it and you can't comprehend it because the damage is so vast.
Scotland could be a victim of its own popularity as a walking destination. Its wetter climate could also explain why there are more cases north of the border. This is the culprit. Ticks feed on birds and animals. They also like us. Wearing appropriate clothing can help, as can insect repellent. Most bites are harmless unless they're infected with the bacteria that causes Lyme disease. You should see a GP as soon as possible if you develop a bullseye red rash around the bite, or you feel you're getting the flu. This latest study, published in the medical journal BMJ Open, says if caught early, most cases of Lyme disease can be treated successfully with antibiotics within 4 weeks. The researchers believe Lyme disease cases are now 3 times higher than previous estimates. Scotland's Chief Medical Officer has written to NHS boards and GPs urging them to be vigilant. This Aberdeen scientist is about to undertake more research in September.
We're trying to work, there's 11 institutes and hospitals and government labs all involved trying to get better ways of diagnosing Lyme disease. So the better the diagnosis, the quicker it can either be treated or ruled out and other causes investigated.
Morven May McCallum is now writing a sequel to an earlier book on her struggle. She says more education is needed for doctors and the public.
Things have changed a lot, awareness has changed a lot, there's more education about Lyme disease, people are now thinking about it a lot more, but there's so much more to do.
In the UK, it's thought there are up to 3,000 new cases every year. Even that could be an underestimate. Walkers are being urged to take precautions. Colin White, STV News.
The UK government is being urged to do more to get a better deal for Scottish farmers after Brexit. The influential Scottish Affairs Select Committee has produced a report outlining what it sees as key areas of action to safeguard the sector, including more funding for less favoured areas and stepping up protection of famous products such as Scotch beef. Nicola McCally's at the Highlands' largest agricultural event, the Black Isle Show, where she's been gauging reaction. Nicola, what are people there making of the recommendations?
Well, the Black Isle Show is 182 years old, so of course they have seen plenty of changes in the sector during that time. But over the past few years, everybody has been talking about Brexit. What will this mean? They've been welcoming the report today. They say perhaps finally there is some sign of light at the end of the tunnel, but there are still plenty of questions. As Brexit looms ever closer, there are still a lot of hurdles to overcome for Scotland's agricultural sector. There's no crystal ball for what the future holds, but farmers preparing for the Black Isle Show today are urging the government to safeguard the industry.
But absolutely crucial to it all is the market, where we can sell our lamb and where we can sell our beef. These are the two most vulnerable parts of agriculture, and I think unless we can be guaranteed to get into the European market, it's going to be catastrophic for sheep, and it's going to be very difficult for beef.
Today, the Scottish Affairs Select Committee laid out its recommendations for farming in Scotland after Brexit. They say it presents an opportunity to address current funding failings. They want the government to rethink the less favoured areas scheme to allocate more funds, make it easier for temporary farm workers to come to Scotland to boost production, and introduce red lines on negotiations involving famous Scottish products such as Scotch beef and black pudding.
Farming and agriculture is nearly all devolved to the Scottish Government, quite rightly so, but there's huge responsibilities at the UK Government, most notably the whole funding envelope and how that's distributed across the UK. We make a number of conclusions and recommendations about how this should be divvied up and may take into account Scotland's unique geography and topography.
Recently, Boris Johnson pledged £160 million to the Scottish sector. The money had been allocated UK-wide, but it was claimed that Britain only qualified for the EU funding because of the lower payment rates to Scottish farmers. The government says the EU's common agricultural policy has given UK farmers a poor deal for years. It's due to publish an independent review into how funding can be fairly allocated after Brexit.
As you'll have seen lately in the press, Boris Johnson, as the new Prime Minister, has acknowledged that Scottish farmers have had a poor deal out of the current UK share up of the CAP funds as they are. So hopefully he recognises that, and because we are more disadvantaged, we've got less favoured area land, we're a bit further north, but more at the vagaries of the weather than the rest of the country, I suppose.
Scottish farmers say after years of talking, now is the time for action to protect their industry and get a better deal for the future. They just hope the government is listening.
Now, as fears grow about a no-deal Brexit, the value of the pound has dramatically dropped this week. For Scots travelling abroad, that means forking out more spending money, while tourists coming here will benefit from a better rate. Experts say there's no doubt that visitors see Scotland and the UK as good value for money, but they're concerned about the long-term future of tourism after we leave the EU. So what's the feeling of travellers on either side of the coin? Kay Nicholson has been finding out.
Some visitors enjoying the sights of the Royal Yacht Britannia today are feeling flush. The pound reached a 2-year low this week. Good news for American tourists.
Our experience is 150. We're down to like 115, 120. Oh, so we're having a wonderful time.
Is the pound that weak or are other currencies strong?
We're only here for a short period of time, so we're going to spend what we spend.
So we got 122, and we were in London last year. It was like 130. 2 years ago we were in Edinburgh, and it was even more. So yes, we're getting more bang for the buck.
With tourists flocking to Scotland by land, air and sea, it looks like it'll be a bumper season. But for us, the prospect of going on holiday isn't quite so rosy. At airport currency exchanges like this, for every pound you hand over, you won't even get a euro back. In some places, the rate is as low as 0.78 euros per pound. So for Scots flying back in here today, they weren't too impressed.
We noticed it coming back, actually. We took some money at the airport and we got practically nothing.
Is that a concern?
Yeah, definitely. Definitely for future holidays and the economy in general.
It was manageable, but it was noticeable. I got mine on Friday, just before we went, and it was, you hardly got anything.
And tourism experts are wary about what this means in the longer term as Brexit looms closer.
It's uncertainty about holidays in late 19, early 20, but also you'll start to see other impacts, such as the cost of imported food, which will start to hit businesses over here. Import-export effects will be considerable, there is no doubt about that.
For now, it's a bonus for tourists coming here, just not so good for our trips abroad. Kay Nicholson, STV News, Edinburgh.
The Scottish Government has set a target to effectively eliminate hepatitis C by 2024. Around 21,000 people in Scotland are thought to be living with the virus, which causes progressive liver damage. NHS Scotland is set to increase the number of people being treated. Health experts in Tayside have been at the forefront of steps to eradicate the disease.
What our intention is to increase the number of people being treated. So this year, raising the target from 2,000 up to 2,500, and then next year and going forward up to 3,000 per year. And there's some really good work going on across Scotland showing that these are targets that I think, with a bit of push, they're ambitious targets, but they're targets which I think we can meet.
A 31-year-old man and a 27-year-old woman have been charged after a woman's body was discovered in Shetland. 40-year-old Tracy Walker was discovered outside a property in the Ladies' Drive area of Lerwick in the early hours of yesterday morning. The pair are expected to appear at the Town Sheriff Court tomorrow. Police have renewed their appeal for information. An 84-year-old woman has died following a gas explosion which destroyed a house in Shetland. The pensioner was taken to hospital following the blast at Auchragarth at around 2 o'clock yesterday afternoon. A teenage boy suffered minor injuries. An investigation into the cause of the explosion is continuing. A woman has died in a road accident in the Highlands. The 20-year-old woman's Nissan Micra was discovered in a collision with a Volkswagen Golf and an Alfa Romeo on the A9 north of Dornoch at around 8:30 this morning. Police are appealing for witnesses. A 20-year plan to transform transport across Scotland aims to help cut emissions and improve health. It was launched alongside a £60 million programme to improve areas of cycling and walking, including Arbroath. Lane Rankin reports.
Cycling on our roads for some can seem like running the gauntlet, but the Scottish Government is paving the way to make it safer to saddle up.
Do you use your bike a lot?
Young cyclists joined the Transport Minister in Perth today to launch a 20-year transport strategy.
The way in which technology is now having an impact on travel is very, very significant. We can see that with autonomous vehicles and the way in which we have traffic intelligent management systems and how it manages traffic, etc. So there's major technological advances being taken forward. And the draft strategy which we're publishing today and asking the people of Scotland to give us their views on it.
£60 million is being invested in 5 projects across the country. George Street in Edinburgh will be transformed, removing parking spaces, widening pavements and creating a segregated cycleway.
Part of our scheme is about a major cycling improvement from George Street to the Meadows to make sure that as much of our cycling network in the city as possible is linked up for future generations to be able to enjoy.
The York Hill and Kelvin Grove Cycling Village is one of 2 projects in Glasgow. Arbroath is in line for investment on the A92, while Perth plans to cut congestion with a segregated cycle lane on Dunkeld Road.
It will reduce the number of cars using Dunkeld Road, but importantly it obviously links up with the Cross Tay Link Road, which is a major project that we're starting any time now.
For the last 25 years, Arbroath has had a dual carriageway right through the centre of it. This project will bring east and west together. It'll give everybody the chance for an easy link to the railway station and to the bus station, but also to our visitors' attractions.
There's still a long way to go to get more people out of cars and onto trains, buses and bikes. But many believe Scotland's now on the right road to tackling emissions and getting people moving. Lynn Rankin, STV News.
40 years on and the 17 victims of an air crash off Sombra in Shetland are being remembered. A plane carrying more than 40 people plunged into the water after failing to take off from the runway. Ross Govins reports.
Survivors of the crash recalled the cabin filling with water in seconds in the desperate attempt to escape from the submerged aircraft.
The rear of the aircraft was filling up with water that fast that no one really had chance to, comply by the procedure. It filled up in seconds rather than minutes, and it was just a panic stations really to get to the door.
The Dan-Air Hawker Siddeley had been chartered to take 44 oil workers back to Aberdeen. A mechanical problem prevented it from getting into the air. It broke in two before plunging into the icy waters at the end of the Sombra runway.
The plane was completely gone, and there's just a tail section sticking out in the wing, and everybody else was way down at the bottom of the tail. They were about 40 yards away from me, and the shore was again another 40 yards beyond them, and with all my denim gear on, I just couldn't swim at all.
Water was cold, sea was pretty rough, choppy.
You're lucky to be alive then.
Yeah, and I'm thankful as well.
40 years on, the widow of the pilot of the aircraft, Liz Bealey, is remembering all those who died.
My family and I own Hexham to lay a wreath to commemorate the 40th anniversary of my husband's death, along with 16 others in the plane crash off Sombra Airport. It has been called the Forgotten Crash, and I really don't want this to happen.
A memorial marking the tragedy and 3 other crashes around the coast of Sombra was unveiled 6 years ago. Relatives of those who died in the Dan-Air crash say the events of that day 4 decades ago must never be forgotten. Ross Govins, STV News.
Well, now it's time for all the sport. Here's Chris.
This is for the winner. Oh, well, that was a cheeky effort. STV Sport, sponsored by Wholesale Domestic Bathrooms.
Good evening. Aberdeen manager Derek McInnes says he's relaxed about further interest in Scotland defender Scott McKenna, but revealed he is looking to sign another player by next week. The Dons are preparing to face Georgians Shakura in their Europa League tie second leg at Pittodrie in what could be one of McKenna's last games for the club. Aberdeen don't have a defensive crisis, but they're just a player injury away from one. Greg Lee's returned to training and should be in at left-back tomorrow night, alongside Andy Considine, Scott McKenna and Shea Logan. Ash Taylor, who went off injured in Georgia last week, had a scan today on his hamstring injury, and Mikey Devlin's still out with the same complaint. But with multi-million-pound bids already rejected for the towering McKenna and the English transfer window shutting next Thursday, it might be a transfer rather than an injury that depletes the Dons' defence.
You know, there's still another week or so with the English window. I think there may well be further interest and maybe other offers coming in, but it's not what I'm thinking about at the minute, and neither Scott. We're just concentrating on this game, but I'm working with a budget that I've got. You know, you look at maybe having ideally 7 defenders in your squad. I've only worked with 6, and we are put under a bit of strain when we get 2 or 3 injuries in that one area of the team. Same for centre midfield, maybe 4 centre midfield players in there. Wider players, we've got a bit more options, and at centre forward we've got a bit more options, but certainly defensively we could do with maybe trying to bring one more in if we can get through this tie on Thursday.
The return of left-back Lee is a huge boost after forward Ryan Hedges filled in over in Georgia last week, but Derek McInnes admits he might not be fit enough to play too many games in a short space of time.
Greg's obviously back involved now, although I think it'd be a lot to ask him to play 3 lots of 90 minutes in a week when he hasn't had a lot of the same pre-season preparation as everybody else. So again, you then make him more susceptible to injury.
Aberdeen hold the advantage going into tomorrow night's Europa League second leg with the away goal in last week's 1-1 draw in Tbilisi. And we'll have plenty more in the build-up to that match tomorrow night from Pittodrie. Now, St Johnstone have signed the rather aptly named goalkeeper Max Johnston on a 1-year deal, and Saints boss Tommy Wright hopes to add a striker to his squad before the league season kicks off this weekend. With all the details, here's Stephanie Daly.
Still on the hunt for a striker, Tommy Wright today moved to bolster his goalkeeping options. Max Johnston, who was most recently with Sunderland, has signed a 1-year deal with the Perth side. Following the disappointment of seeing his move to bring Aberdeen striker Stevie May back to McDermott Park fall through, Wright has the funds to bring in a frontman, something he hopes to do before Saturday's league opener at Celtic.
There's money there for a striker. That's obvious because we were in for Stevie May. There's always been a budget for a striker, so that still has to be used. And you know, ideally, I would like to get one in as a striker in before the weekend. You know, Chris Kane's got a back injury, which we don't know from day to day. You know how he's going to be. It's something we'll have to get the bottom off. So I would like the striker in before the weekend.
Stevie May, meanwhile, wasn't training with Aberdeen today. With several clubs interested, Don's boss Derek McInnes says a move may materialise in the next few days. Dundee are still keen to land the 26-year-old.
He's still on the radar. There's been no movement, nothing changed from last week. So I don't know if there has been many other clubs regarding him or not, but yeah, he's certainly one that's still on a list.
Meanwhile, Dundee striker Andrew Nelson says he's enjoying his new partnership up front with Danny Johnson, who scored the winner for the Dark Blues on his debut against Inverness in the Cup at the weekend.
Danny's originally from Borough, and it's only like 20 minutes away from me as well, so you know, it's nice to have someone that can actually understand a bit now as well, you know. But no, Danny he's came in and he showed what he's about, you know. I mean, in training, that he's sharp, he's scoring goals in training, you know. And you think, well, if you can do that in the games, great, because then that'll help everyone else and obviously help himself as well to get us where we want to be.
Stephanie Daly, STV News.
Now, competition for places at the Rugby World Cup is pushing the Scotland squad to new heights, according to assistant coach Danny Wilson. The set-piece gurus relishing having a fully fit squad to work with for the entire summer ahead of the showpiece tournament in Japan this autumn.
The competition is the best I've seen it since I've been here, there's no doubt about that, in positions when you've got what I'm seeing a Scotland squad fit at the moment, and touch wood it stays fit. There's real selection headaches and real therefore intensity in training, but what we're moving slowly into is a more physical part of our preparation in terms of, as we know, we've got 4 games coming up.
And that, of course, is in September. Now, all things being equal, we will be previewing Aberdeen's European match live from Pittodrie. Do join me then. But for me, have a very good evening now.
Go on, keep going. Ooh, we didn't expect that. STV Sport, sponsored by Wholesale Domestic Bathrooms.
Well, time for the weather forecast with Sean. Sean, a few showers and storms around today.
That's right, but actually for coastal parts of Aberdeenshire, Angus and Fife, it's been a lovely day, plenty of sunshine. But inland Aberdeenshire, we've had a few thunderstorms here today, but the main focus has really been earlier on today around Perth and Pitlochry. There was lots of big thundery downpours there, and also across the North and the West Highlands. Tomorrow, still some thundery showers, and again, the main focus in central and western areas. Let's look at the forecast.
Bringing you sunshine. TUI sponsors STV Weather.
So the main focus of those heavy showers today has been across central and western parts of the country, and they've been coming from this little trailing weather front here, which is linked in with this area of low pressure, which has taken 3 days to travel its way northeast across England. But as that low pressure system continues to drift its way into the North Sea, it drags that weather front away with it, so the heaviest showers should ease away as well. So those showers will tend to melt away through this evening, but still some thunderstorms across parts of the Highlands and perhaps into western parts of Perthshire, Stirlingshire and also Argyll. But those showers should, as I mentioned, ease off as we head through the evening. We still hang on to that low cloud across northern areas, giving us misty weather here, and still mainly dry with clear spells along the east coast. Lowest temperatures tonight down to about 12 or 13 degrees. So tomorrow morning we start off dry with sunshine across many central areas. There will be the odd scattered shower. We still hang on to that low cloud across the likes of the Northern Isles, perhaps on the northeast coast around Caithness too. There will be some scattered showers coming into the east coast, but nothing compared to today's. However, a few thundery showers possibly developing in the southwest Highlands during the afternoon. But feeling nice and any sunny spells tomorrow with highs around 22 degrees Celsius in Perth. Then on Friday there'll still be scattered showers, especially through western and central areas, brightest in the far northwest and northeast.
Bringing you sunshine. TUI sponsors STV Weather.
That's all for now from everyone here on the STV News at 16. Of course, I will be back at 10:30 with the late news. Until then, though, have a great evening. Bye-bye.